Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. In this guide, we'll be going over the brand new Bucky meta that is taking over high-level rank games and pro play. Not only will we be teaching you exactly why the Bucky is becoming a top-tier pickup and how to use it yourself, but we'll also be going over each map and showing you the best locations to use the Bucky on. And trust me when I say this guide will change the way you see and play Valorant, and you'll be getting way more kills taking advantage of this new Bucky meta. Now, for our question of the day, what weapon in Valorant do you think is underrated right now? You know, that gun that everyone thinks is weak or mediocre, when in reality you think that it really isn't that bad at all. For me, I would pick the Ares. This machine gun is rarely ever picked, but I think it can be a fantastic purchase on the second round of the half if you've won the first round. But I'm really curious, what weapon do you think is underrated right now in Valorant? Leave a comment below as we read all of them. All right, so first things first, you need to understand exactly how the Bucky works, and believe me, it's not as simple or straightforward as you may think. So the Bucky's primary fire mode will shoot 15 pellets, and each pellet will do a various amount of damage at different ranges. This can be a bit confusing and unintuitive, but don't worry, we've simplified things by showing you the shots to kill at each range damage drop-off point. So for example, between 0 to 3 meters, you will need to land 7 out of 15 bullets to the body to kill fully armored targets. Between 3 to 7 meters, you'll have to land 8 out of 15. For 7 to 11 meters, you have to land 11 out of 15. And for the 11 to 50 meters, you have to land 17 out of 15 bullets, which obviously is impossible. So just from these stats, it sounds like it would be impossible to kill outside of 11 meters with the Bucky, and that is the case for the primary left-click fire mode. But if we use the right-click, we can see we can easily one-shot fully armored targets at 15 meters. So what's the deal? Well, it's this interaction that is making the Bucky so strong right now, and it all has to do with the alternate fire mode on the right-click. The Bucky's alternate fire will shoot a canister that detonates after 8 meters, releasing the standard 15 pellets. However, this is what is key to understanding why the Bucky is so powerful. The game does not calculate the damage drop-off until the canister explodes at 8 meters. What this effectively means is that if you land a right click on an opponent at 8 meters, right when that canister explodes, it's counting the bullet's damage as being point blank under 3 meters. So if we go back to that previous shot to kill chart, when you use a right click, you're essentially adding 8 meters of range when you right click. So this is what the shot to kill stats would look like if you're using the right click with the Bucky. And suddenly we see how the Bucky can potentially one shot a fully armored target all the way up to 19 meters. But past that, it becomes impossible. And you can test this out yourself. And as long as you're under 19 meters, you can actually one shot fully armored targets consistently. That's pretty insane. All right, so enough with the boring numbers. What does this all actually mean in terms of playing the game? Well, it's actually pretty simple. If you're under 8 meters, then your right click won't work as the canister won't explode. So you want to use your regular left click and you'll one shot opponents at this range. Also, this is a great time to teach you that with the shotguns in Valorant, you never want to aim for the head. Instead, you want to aim for the center of the chest, as this will result in the most pellets landing, and this is the key to doing the most damage. This is mainly influenced by the fact that shotguns have a weaker headshot multiplier than regular guns, at only doing 2 times the amount of damage to the head instead of the regular 3 times. So yeah, as you can see, as long as you understand how the Bucky works and you aim for that center chest spot, you can one shot with the left click at under 8 meters consistently, and then past 8 meters to 19 meters, you can one shot with the right click. This effectively gives you one shot potential against fully armored targets at 18 meters or less, which is just an insanely high range. Now, all of this sounds great, and you're probably now convinced that the Bucky might be overpowered, and it definitely is strong. However, there's still another key mechanic you need to understand to use the Bucky properly, and that's the fact that you can't actually jump shoot with the Bucky. Check this out. Notice how much bigger the bullet spread is if I jump compared to if I just stand still. This is truly a massive difference, and many players make the mistake of thinking the Bucky is like the other shotguns where you can just run around and jump shoot. Not only is this not the case, but you don't even really want to be running with the Bucky when you shoot. Again, check out the bullet spread difference. And so when you're using the Bucky, you want to use a mechanic called strafe shooting or counter strafing. We have several guides on this mechanic, so check them out if you don't already know what we're talking about here. But essentially, counter strafing is just when you time a shot right as you change directions so that the game will consider you to be standing still and gives you perfect accuracy. You'll notice if we run and shoot, we have that terrible bullet spread. However, if we input a counter strafe and time our shot properly, we get that standing accuracy. So what does all this mean? Well, when using the Bucky, you either want to be standing still, crouching, or counter strafing when you shoot. This is especially true when using the right click. Otherwise, your bullet spread will be too wide and you'll miss too many bullets and you won't one shot them. Also, one final trick before we jump into the best spots on each map for the Bucky, you can actually have like infinite ammo with the Bucky as long as you reload between each shot. As you can see here, it gives you the same fire rate. All you have to do is after you take a shot, spam that reload button, then spam the fire button once you reload and repeat, and you'll have infinite ammo. You're essentially just reloading one bullet in the chamber in between each shot. This trick is best used when you notice you have 1 or 2 bullets left in your chamber. You can incorporate this technique to prevent being stuck in a reload animation once you run out of ammo. All right, so to start, we'll be going over the map bind and really going into detail here so you guys can understand the intricacies of how the left and right click fire mode of the Bucky can influence the strength of certain spots on the maps. Additionally, for all of the clips you're about to see, the enemy has full health and full armor. Now, one of the first spots you should be considering playing with the Bucky is at B long. This is because as attackers run up B B long, they have no cover and will be in the right click range sweet spot to one-shot them. However, do keep in mind, once they get close enough, under 8 meters, the canister from your right click will no longer explode. It will only do 40 damage, and so you will need to use your left click to one-shot them. The nice thing about playing B long and the garden area though, is that not only do you have this aggro peak on B long, but you can also just play off angles inside of garden that give you consistent right click one-shots. Again though, same idea, if they peek you close, they will be under 8 meters and you will need to use your left click to one-shot them. Now, the very next spot you have available, which is a nice fallback spot, is outside of garden in the cubby. It's really strong, as if they peek far away, you one-shot them with the right click, and if they peek close, you can one-shot them with the left click. Now, I hope you're starting to see how with these positions, although they are powerful, they can be difficult to play because of having to know when to left click or right click. This is why knowing positions where you only have to left click or only have to right click with the Bucky can be stronger due to them being easier to play. So for example, inside of Hookah on Bind, you want to jump on this box and play here. You'll have a one-shot from any range the enemy peeks you from by using your left click. Same idea at this spot in Hookah. No matter what range the enemy peeks you from, you can one-shot with the right click. Also, if you want to play the cubby in Hookah, then hop on this box and play this angle while crouching. It's a strong off angle where you'll one-shot with the right click at any distance the enemy peeks you from. So as you can see, these Hookah spots are much easier to play compared to the B long spots, as you can just memorize the locations and then know you only have to left click or only right click instead of having to figure it out on the fly. It should also be mentioned that you can play underneath outside of Hookah, but if you jump right click, it will actually take you 2 shots to kill armored opponents. This just goes to show how important standing still accuracy is when using the Bucky if you want that one-shot kill. And lastly, for B site, you can play inside container. This will give you one-shot potential with the left click at all ranges the enemy will peek you out when they push you. Also from here, you have this nasty peek on Hookah players looking out of window where you can one-shot them with your right click. Otherwise, you have back of sight, in which case you want to hold these angles and right click as you'll one-shot all enemies at this range. Again, just to highlight how bad jumping and moving inaccuracy is with the Bucky, if you try to jump left click over this box, you will not one-shot enemies as the bullet spread will cause too many pellets to miss. Moving on to A site, you have 2 options. The first being inside of showers. This is really strong, as if you peek against the back of the wall, you will one-shot all enemies as they enter inside of showers with your right click at this range. You can then also fall back and play this off angle, which allows you to right click one-shot at all ranges they peek you. Another good option is outside of showers. If you play on top of this bench, you can right click one-shot all enemies from this range. Or you can play close on top of the box, which will one-shot all enemies with your left click at this range. The alternative for A site is to play this off angle at lamps. You right click if they peek you far and left click if they peek you close. Otherwise, you want to fall back inside of lamps and hold this specific angle, as it's a guaranteed one-shot with your right click. Now, if you're attacking, things actually change, as your options are more limited, as you can't control the ranges you will get into fights in, as the defenders can hold all sorts of random angles on you. However, there are still some solid locations you want to look out for. If you're attacking with a Bucky, then you can go B long, where once you start to move up, you will have a right click one-shot at any enemies peeking on you from garden or playing inside of garden. You can also attack Hookah, but it requires a lot more skill, as there are a ton of angles the enemy can play that are right at that breakpoint of your left and right click ranges. Essentially, it's really easy for you to mess up and right click when you should have left clicked, and vice versa. The other option is to attack showers with a Bucky, as you can move up close outside of showers on the left side and then one-shot any enemies holding the angle with a right click. At the same time, if they go for the orb, then you can one-shot them with your left click. On top of all of this, if they try to hold this angle on you in showers, you can still one-shot them with your right click. So if you know an enemy plays showers, then grabbing a Bucky and heading there can be an effective way to one-shot them and take their rifle. Alright, so as you can see from this bind section that we just went over, it gets a bit complicated if you play angles where you need to switch between using the left and right click. That's why for the remainder of the maps, we're just going to be focusing on angles where you only have to left click or only have to right click. By only showing you these simple, powerful spots, will make it far easier for you to just jump into a game, buy that Bucky, and start using the angles found in this guide to rack up some kills. Alright, so moving on to the map Haven, you have 2 fantastic locations to use the Bucky on defense. First is B site. This is pretty overpowered. You can play either side of B site, far in the corners, and it will be a perfect right click one-shot, regardless of how far or close the enemy peeks you when they run into sight. This is especially strong with agents like Jet or Omen that can teleport to the boxes on the right side. The next best spot on defense for the Bucky is in Garage. Now, here's what's crazy. As long as you just move up against the window, you can one-shot with the right click any enemies that run into Garage. You can also play the connector, in which case same idea, it's the perfect right click range to one-shot any enemies running in. And then you can even switch it up to play in the close corner, in which case you want to left click to one-shot them from this range. Switching it up, if you're the one attacking, you really only have one good area of the map to take a Bucky on Haven, and that's Garage. What you want to do is smoke out window so that no one can peek you from there. Then you have one-shot potential with your right click on anyone playing connector. Then as you move in, you can left click one-shot anyone playing up close to the left. Next up, we have the map Split, which arguably has some of the best Bucky spots in the game. So for defense, let's start with back of sight. You can play this angle here and have a right click one-shot on any enemies that run past, regardless of how close or far away that they are. This is a really fantastic off angle to play that nets you a lot of free kills the first time you use use it. Moving on into B Heaven, here you want to play this angle as it gives you a guaranteed one-shot with your right click on any enemies pushing through mailroom. Our next spot is on top of boxes in vents/rope room. This is an amazing spot that most players won't check, and you have a guaranteed one-shot with your right click on any enemies pushing into vents. If you're looking to instead play closer to A site, then you want to play on top of this box here on ramp. It's the perfect right click range to one-shot opponents while being an off angle that catches them off guard. Just make sure that you crouch for that extra accuracy. If you want to play in sight instead, then we highly recommend playing the corner on top of the rafters, as it will give you a one-shot with your right click on any enemies pushing regardless of the distance. Now, if instead you're the one attacking on split, you actually have a decent amount of options with the Bucky. First is taking control of mid and then going into B Heaven. You can clear close in the mailroom cubby with a left click, the off angle in B Heaven with your right click, anyone playing the box with a left click, and anyone playing the stairs angle with your right click. Your other option is to hit A Heaven. Here you want to smoke the cross at the start of the round and then head towards ramps. You then clear all of ramps with a one-shot with your right click. Do keep in mind though, you need to be fast, as if you take too long, the enemy can either rotate or fall back to back of A Heaven, in which case your Bucky is useless, so you need to hit this fast at the start of the round. Once you get control of A Heaven, you then want to play this little cubby, as you can one-shot all rotators with your right click, regardless of whether they come through spawn or through vents. Moving on to the map Ascent. So on defense, one of the best angles is on top of this box on catwalk. It gives you a perfect right click range and is an off angle that always catches opponents by surprise. Seriously, use this angle. An alternative is to play this off angle in tree room, as players often don't clear it, so you'll get a right click one shot as they try to push into sight. And if they do try to push you in tree, then you can just simply left click to one shot them up close. If you want to play on A site itself, then we recommend only doing this if you have an agent with a teleport ability such as Omen, Jet, Raze, etc., as if you get on top of this box, you can one shot any enemies pushing through with a right click, and in general just catches a lot of people off guard. And the last location we recommend with a Bucky is holding B main at the start of the round, as you can one shot enemies pushing with a right click. You can also look to move forward immediately once the barrier drops into this off angle spot, where you're at the perfect range to right click one shot any enemies peeking. Now for attack, we actually don't recommend any locations to use the Bucky on for Ascent. Instead, you're much better off going with a Sheriff or Stinger if you're running eco or light buying on attack for this map. And finally, we have the best Bucky locations on the map Icebox, starting with defense. So on a site, you have this fantastic off angle here that's the perfect range to right click one shot enemies pushing, even if they take the rope. However, keep in mind this can be countered by an enemy jumping on top of pipe, so you want to keep that in mind. The alternative spot on a site is to play in the front portion of site itself behind the container, as this will give you perfect right click distances to one shot enemies on both the right and left sides as they try to enter the site. This is a very versatile spot and gives you a lot of outplay opportunities, so it's highly recommended. One cheesy location is to play the mid cross under tube here. This will often catch players off guard while being within perfect right click one shot range. Otherwise, the only other location we recommend to play with the Bucky is in this cubby at B site. This will let you one shot any enemies up close with your left click, while you can right click one shot any enemies that jump on top of the container. Now, just like with the previous map Ascent, we don't recommend purchasing a Bucky on attack on Icebox, as there really aren't that many great paths to take. You're better off purchasing a Sheriff or Stinger on the eco or light buy rounds instead. Alright, so with all of this being covered, when should you be purchasing the Bucky? Well, the pros are using it as an eco or light buy purchase when you run no armor at all and only buy the Bucky, so you will still have enough money on the following round to buy rifle and armor. Essentially, you can think of it as a replacement purchase for the Sheriff or Stinger on eco rounds. It's extremely strong on defense, and so often players on defense will opt into the Bucky over other weapons on these eco rounds. However, on attack, it's much more map specific. Unless you're hitting specific areas of the map where you know the Bucky will shine, purchasing a Sheriff or Stinger or Frenzy can be a better eco purchase. Alright, and remember, if you want to improve fast, win more gunfights, and get the rank you've always wanted, then there's nothing better than our hyper improvement system at SkillCapped.com. Check it out, link in the description below. Otherwise, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to keep up to date with the meta and get more premium guides with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching until the end, and we'll catch you in the next one.